How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia, where we're continuing Sachi's flashback backstory, post-traumatic stress. I heard from a few of you. This is one that might be good to settle in and try and get all the way through. Although you also a few of you also mentioned it might be like, take things at your own pace, don't rush it. That's okay. I get the feeling we're going to. Last time there was a lot that proceeded before we got to the point of the memory flashback. I feel like today is probably gonna mostly just be wrapping up whatever this is. But yeah, nope. I'm imagining it's gonna get great because remember, post-traumatic stress. It started out great, started out happy, so it can't keep. It's only gonna get worse from here. Oh, it's only going to get worse from here. So let's buckle up. Probably going to be pretty emotional. Other than the fact that this is a Sachi flashback, there's really not much else to say about like what happened last time. Just that life was harder for the parents, but they were happier because they got to spend time with their daughter. But then when they found some real success and started to see like real growth in their business, things took a slowdown. And they stopped being as being able to be available for Sachi, but we're able to buy her a lot of stuff, right? So that should make up for it. But clearly it doesn't, because that's not what life's all about. So now that Sachi had an explosive, like, hey, I don't appreciate what you're doing, I just want to be able to spend time with you. And she kind of, she's shifting gears a bit. Also, if I look around occasionally, we just had our first real intrusion of flies in the house. Like, we had like 2, and they're just those kind that, not only that, like the first ones that managed to actually get in, which is pretty amazing if you consider that we're got this far into the summer, but they're also tenacious ones. They're the stupid ones that tend to like just zoom around in circles and sometimes try and run directly into your head. So I'm going to try and ignore it, because it followed me down here, and apparently it can't get out of my little studio, so it's just here now. So cool. Life, it's always fun. Finds a way to be stupid. Anyway, let's jump right into it, shall we? Especially because of the way they do these memories, it means more editing for me, because I have to move my screen up and down to try and make sure that most of the text is available to read. I don't always do it if it's a tiny little fraction that's not seeable, but it's just going to make this a little more time consuming, but not in a way that's meaningful. Anyway, after that miserable day, I decided to change my way of thinking and start fresh. Maybe finally saying what I'd kept locked inside helped. Maybe all the crying got all the poison out of my system. Either way, I found a new conviction to cling to. If what I've been doing isn't enough, I'll just have to try even harder. Not merely devoting myself to my studies, I began actively volunteering for class representative and other student government duties. I threw myself into anything that seemed like it might put a smile on my parents' faces, even learning to play the music box song they loved so much. Probably because of that broad-spirited effort, my results at school rose so high I broke the top 10 list of our year. Grades other than A disappeared from my report card entirely, and the comments were increasingly filled with effusive praise about how I'd become an example for the other students. But even then...
お父さん、今日は終業式だったから、通知表もらってきたよ。
So he didn't even go to the closing ceremony. That is really sad. Like, I understand being busy, and I understand needing to focus. I understand even not being able to be present for your family all the time. Like, it happens. Sometimes you have to provide, and sometimes it requires you to do work that takes you away from home. Like, I like cross-country trucking. Like, I knew a family whose, like, father did that. He'd be gone for months at a time. So yeah, like, I get it. But at the same time, like, he's in the same town. You think he could put down work for one day to go to the closing ceremony or to, like, the school fair or something.
Oh. もうそんな季節か。
He's just so disconnected.
それでね、今回は私、評価の数字が全部5だったの。
That's crazy, though. Like, I know, like, in the typical scale of, like, grades, like, there's A and then there's S tier above A. Do they do that for school at all, or is that just, like, a video game thing?
じゃあ、この仕事が終わったらじっくり見せてもらうから。もう少しだけ待っててくれるか?
Come on, dude. It takes like 10, 20 minutes. It's not like it's that big a deal. Like, can't you walk away for even, like, that long?
もういい。
Yeah, you dingus. In the end, nothing changed. Even when I brought home a straight A report card for the first time, Mom and Dad didn't pay attention to me like they used to. If the best possible results weren't good enough, it could only mean that my parents had started to hate me. Okay, here's the thing. So on one side, you can almost interpret this as selfish. It's like, come on, like the world doesn't revolve around you. You're a kid. Like they have to provide for you. They're doing all this for you. But on the other hand, like, what is the point of having a family if you're never around for the family? If she grows up and literally leaves her home, like she, turns 18, gets a job, moves out, are they actually going to be excited? Is that going to be the fulfillment they were hoping for when they started working this hard? And like I said, it's one of those things where, like, I understand. I've lived and currently live the life of there's too much going on, right? Like, I am the definition of, like, you're pushing yourself too hard. Chillax. Like, make time. But that's the thing, is I make time. I make time for the people in my life. I make time for the important stuff. I take time to step away and sometimes breathe. One of the things, it took me years, but I finally did a trip where I went to, like, we have like museums in the area, and there's one that was a naval museum, like where they had a bunch of stuff from World War II Navy times, and I find that stuff fascinating. I've always wanted to go to it. It's literally like 10 minutes away from me, and I never made the time for it in like the past 6 years. Finally made time for it like a month ago, and it was awesome. It was great. It was a wonderful experience that took an hour. And the drive, I probably could have walked to it, honestly, if I'd had extra time. I didn't, because, busy. But like it was that close. I could have walked to it, and I was able to make the time for it. It was absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. And your kid, it's worth it, even if it's like deadline to deadline back. In fact, like if you find yourself, in crunch, that's fine. But if crunch extends for years, it's not crunch anymore. That's just debilitating, and that's not healthy, for you, not for your family. Like, step away, dude. Come on. No matter how good my grades got, it wouldn't make them start loving me again. They were probably working really hard on their job so they could get enough money to run away together. The more I thought, the more dejected I felt. Why had I bothered to try so hard all this time? Before I knew it, my legs had carried me to the neighborhood park where we'd once played together as a family. Oh. And here's where Yuuji comes in, huh? Interesting. So the idea is that they both, Sachi and Yuuji, were highly rejected by their families. Sachi was rejected because they were so focused on the success of their business and like providing that they kind of lost sight of why they were providing and working so hard. They were doing it for Sachi, but because they were doing it so they were focused and so laser focused on it, they kind of just left Sachi behind. And then Yuuji, obviously, like, I don't know the details, but he's made it pretty clear that, like, his sister was a genius. She was, like, the focal point. His parents were, like, zeroed in and focused on her. And in comparison, they thought Yuuji was, inferior or uninteresting. And so they just didn't make time for him. Everything was focused on his sister. And so he came here to escape because he didn't like feeling like a burden, which is how Sachi's feeling, too. So no wonder they got along so well. But I might never be able to play there again, not like I had before. I'm the saddest kid in the world, abandoned by my own parents. It was only a few moments after I'd convinced myself of this that I noticed a mysterious boy. Oh, there he is! Oh, he's so cute! He's a very cute little kid. He wasn't doing a thing, just sitting quietly on a swing, staring off into space. I'd always thought that the park of a place where everyone played all the time, so that motionless boy struck me as out of place. What's that kid doing over there? Only a few seconds after that first twinge of curiosity, I walked right up to him. By the way, like, we've heard this music before many times. I do love it, though. This might be my favorite score from the game. Like, there's been a lot of good ones. But this one's, like, one I feel like I could just turn on and just listen to for hours. Because it's just so chill. But also, like, it's got an odd emotional, like, swelling to it. It's almost like standing in a field, just feeling the wind and watching, like, the heads of like the grain of a wheat field, maybe, or like the flowers of early spring kind of drifting around, and kind of just watching that and just kind of being in that kind of pristine moment where all your senses are stimulated, but in the gentlest of ways. That's what this music reminds me of.
ねえ、ねえ、私の声聞こえてる？
Huh?
だから、私の声聞こえてる？それとも聞こえてない？
If I couldn't hear you, I don't think I'd be able to answer.
ああ、そっか。そういえばそうだよね。
So, did you want something?
うん。あなたは何をしているのかが気になって。
Well, I wasn't doing anything, I guess. Ah!
何それ？
Okay. Ooh, boy. Okay, I might be on team Sachi Yuuji. Oh. That's a really cute picture right here. And she's so clearly Sachi. Like, dude, how did he not remember her? I guess he probably went through a lot between these playtimes and when he met her again. But she didn't change anything about herself. Well, my sister told me that sometimes people need to spend some time doing nothing at all.
へえ、あなたのお姉さんって面白いこと言う人なんだね。
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
でも、公園は遊具がたくさんあるところなんだから、ブランコとかジャングルジムで遊んだ方が楽しいでしょ？そう思わない？
Yeah, you're probably right.
じゃあ、一緒に遊ぼうよ。
Huh?
私はここで遊びたいって思ってて、あなたも公園は遊ぶところだと思ってる。
She's got you there.
だったら、一緒に遊ばない理由はないでしょ？ほら、行こう。
The boy looked so painfully bored that even the saddest kid in the world had forgotten to feel sorry for herself. As he blinked up at me, completely dumbfounded, I grabbed him by the hand and pulled him along after me. That was how I met Yu-kun.
まずは何をして。ってそうだ。
What's wrong?
あなたの名前を聞くの
Yeah, I guess you did.
じゃあ改めて、あなたのお名前は？
Yuuji. Kazama Yuuji.
ユージくんか。じゃあこれからユウくんって呼ばせてもらうね。
Huh?
そっちの方が呼びやすいでしょ？
What's your name then?
私の名前はサチ。小峰サチっていうの。
Komine Sachi. Sachi? Like an orca? She's like, really?
ねえユウくん、パンチしていい？
Yeah, I like younger Sachi. She's got attitude. I love it. Sorry.
それから私の呼び方もユウくんが好きに決めてくれていいからね。
She's like, anything but that. Okay then, I guess I'll go with Sachan.
やっぱりさっちゃんか。
I mean, nothing else really comes to mind.
そうだよね。
After this brief exchange of introductions, we immediately got down to the business at hand.
じゃあ最初はあれからだよ、ユウくん。
The jungle gym.
そう、まずはどっちが早くてっぺんまで登れるかの勝負だからね。
Wait, what? Wait, hold on a second. After deciding the event on a whim, I forcibly started the game. Yu-kun didn't have many suggestions himself, but when I pulled on his arm, he'd follow. Pretty heavy-handed, I know. Anyway, we must have been fairly evenly matched in reflexes and strength. Every game was a competitive match. I was always the winner, of course, but only by a narrow margin. That made the games much more fun, so I just kept going and going. Before I knew it, the sun had begun to sink below the horizon. Oh, I think I need to go home pretty soon.
もうそんな時間になってたんだ。
Yeah, we ended up playing a whole lot.
ごめんね、遅くまで付き合わせちゃって。
That's okay. It'll be fine as long as I head straight home.
それならよかった。
Yeah.
それじゃあバイバイ、ユウくん。
Bye. Thanks for playing with me today. Kind of weird for the person who got dragged around all day to say thanks to the person who was doing the dragging. I don't know, man. Sometimes us introverts, we just need someone to do that. Just grab us by the hand and yank us. Like, take us where we need to go, and we'll have a blast because, I don't know. For me, at least, one of the big reasons why I can struggle to just go do stuff can really be the fact that, like, it feels It feels weird to just go because of me. Like, I've had to learn how to, like, use my own motivation to go and do stuff for fun. Like literally say, like, oh, I want to do this, so I'm gonna go. That's something that honestly took time. And, like, I even just said earlier, like, it took me, like, 6 years to go to a museum locally that I wanted to go to. Like, what was holding me back? Me. So, yeah, when you're dealing with an introverted person, like, sometimes literally dragging them in a very kind way is the absolute right thing to do. Even if they drag their feet at first, because a lot of times we have a lot of apprehension or anxiety about it. But once we get there, it's usually pretty fun, especially if we're with people we trust. It was also odd. I thought about Yukun the whole way back home. I ended up so lost in thought that I barely touched the meal our housekeeper made for me. Once he actually started playing, I think he enjoyed it just as much as I did. But when I was trying to think up new games, or when we stopped for a break, Yukun went right back to the expression I saw on his face at the start. Why was Yukun in that playground in the first place? It obviously wasn't to play. Maybe something bad happened at his home too. Partly out of simple curiosity, I decided that I wanted to see Yukun again. The very next day, I made my way back to the playground. There he is! And sure enough, he was sitting on the exact same swing with the exact same downcast look on his face.
こんにちは、ゆうくん。
Hi.
今日は最初から返事をしてくれたね。
Well, yeah. And he said hello to me again, Sachan.
だって昨日一緒に遊んだんだから、私たちはもうお友達でしょ？
Friends?
それともまだ早すぎたかな？
Oh, he smiled. No, thanks for calling me a friend.
うん、
Did I say something weird?
そうじゃないけど、ゆうくんはよくありがとうって言うなと思って。
That's something else my sister told me. People who can offer thanks to others have a happier road through life than people who can't, so...
ゆうくんはお姉さんのことが好きなんだね。
Huh?
だって昨日もお姉さんの名前が出てきたから。
I guess I did, now that you mention it.
じゃあやっぱり？
Yeah. Sometimes I don't really understand what my big sister's thinking, and sometimes she's even kind of scary. But that's normally really, but she's normally really nice to me. I think I love her more than anyone else in my family.
そっか。でも今度は私もゆうくんのお姉さんに賛成する。
Really?
私のお母さんも言ってたんだ。誰かによくしてもらった時はちゃんとお礼を言いなさいって。
So I guess you love your mom, Sacha? Since you brought her up her advice.
そうだね。私はお母さんとお父さんのことが大好き。
No kidding. As the conversation moved along, we slowly learned more about each other. That was surprisingly fun in its own way.
ねえゆうくん、せっかくまた会えたんだし、今日も一緒に遊ぼうよ。
I don't mind, but is it really any fun playing with someone like me?
もちろんだよ。ゆうくんも運動は得意みたいだし、どの勝負も接戦だったから、昨日はすごく面白かったよ。
Gosh, she's so awesome. Thanks. It's nice of you to say that.
ゆうくんまたありがとうって言った。
Ah, you're right. But that was fine by me. For some reason, every time Yukun said thanks in that slightly bashful voice, I felt genuinely happy.
そういえば、ゆうくんは何歳？
I'm 10.
じゃあ、私の方が年下だったんだ。
Huh? Seriously? I was so sure it was the other way around.
じゃあ、ゆうくんは私の方が年上だと思ってたんだ。
I mean, you're stronger than me, and I'm a boy.
あ、ゆうくんってばひどい。私が怪力女みたいな言い方して。
So, is it a cultural reference she makes here? Because She-Hulk would be a cultural reference for me. I guess they have comic books in Japan, so maybe she literally says what they call Hulk in Japan. I don't know. No way if you happen to know, I'd love to know. Like, is it literally like She-Hulk as a reference to the Marvel character, or is it another term that they used that's a bit more culturally relevant in Japan, and so they switched it to something that's more culturally relevant to me? Sorry.
そんなに怒ってるわけじゃないから謝らなくても大丈夫だよ。
Really? That's good. I'd only been trying to tease the slightly timid Yukun a bit. But when he smiled with sincere relief to learn that I wasn't upset with him, I was surprised to feel my heart flutter briefly in my chest.
そういえば、ゆうくんはどうしてこの公園に来るようになったの？もしかして聞いたらダメなことだったかな？
No, it's okay. I just came here because I didn't want to be at home.
やっぱり家で何か嫌なことがあったの？
God, can you imagine it? It's hard having conversations like this when you're a kid. I remember like sometimes those times would come up where you start to wonder about this when you're like younger and you just don't know what to even do with that information. Not really anything bad. I didn't want to be in the way.
邪魔？
Yeah. You might not believe it, but my sister's what they call a genius. If she just studies a little, she can win first prize at anything. That's how smart she is.
わあ、すごいんだね、ゆうくんのお姉さんって。
Yeah. But lately, she hasn't been winning that many awards. At home, she's been paying more attention to me than her paintings and stuff. Dad got really angry when he noticed that. He told me, "You're useless trash, but Kazuki's actually worth something. Don't drag her down with you." Fetch me! What a piece of trash dad. So I try to stay out of the house as much as I can to keep out of my sister's way. Sorry, not really an interesting story, is it?
なんかじゃない。絞りかすなんかじゃない。
Huh?
ひどいよ、そんなこと言うお父さん。
Yes! Go, Sachi, go!
ゆうくんは出来損ないなんかじゃない。ゆうくんは運動が得意だし、ゆうくんと一緒に遊ぶのはすごく楽しい。それなのに、お姉さんの絞りかすだなんてひどすぎるよ。
Oh, she's like literally crying. Oh no. Sachan.
ゆうくんはゆうくんでいいんだよ。だから自分はいらない子だなんて思っちゃダメだからね。
Aw, but it did hit close to home, which is probably why. I hadn't intended to cry, but I really was angry at Yukun's stupid dad. And the way he didn't belong in his own home reminded me so much of my own problems that sort of got jumbled together in my mind. I couldn't help shouting that it wasn't true, that I wasn't unwanted. Sorry, don't cry, Sachan.
私の方こそごめんね。急に泣いちゃったりして。違う
It's okay. Thanks for getting mad for me.
の、私が怒ったのは。
Because something bad happened at home, right? But that doesn't matter. You still got angry because of what my dad said.
だってゆうくんが出来損ないなんかじゃないと思ったのは本当だし。
Aww. Yeah. So in return, I'll play anything you want today, for as long as you want.
いいの？
Uh-huh.
じゃあ公園鉄人レースでもいい？
Playground Iron Man?
これを初めてやろうとした時はお父さんが腰を痛めて途中でリタイアになっちゃったんだけど、
That actually sounds intense.
最初は砂場のお城作りから始まって10回連続逆上がりとか運転2往復なんかもあって、
Where did you even come up with this?
最後は1回転できるまでのエンドレスブランコっていうプログラムなんだよ。
Until you flip over the bars. Like, is she meaning like the full like loop-to-loop? Because that's like under your own steam impossible. Like, you just can't overcome gravity with your own, like, just kicking. That sounds a little...
じゃあゆうくんが家に帰らないといけない時間まで昨日みたいに遊ぶ？
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
じゃあ決まりだね。
I firmly wiped the tears from my eyes and seized Yukun's hand and set off running for the seesaw. From that moment, the day sped past in a blur. Covered in sand, the two of us explored every inch of the park, playing and playing until we'd passed the time we had to leave. And when I finally made my way home on that second night, I discovered a clear and pleasant change inside myself. For months, the droning sound of the machines from the workshop had bothered me so much that falling asleep was always a struggle, but that day, I was snoring peacefully away the moment my head hit the pillow. I love that. That's one of the greatest things I've reclaimed in my life. Growing up, I always struggled to fall asleep. It'd take forever. I'd have to like listen to music or a book or something on an audiobook. and it would take me, I feel like, an hour every night. It was rough. And even as I got older, I got a little bit better at falling asleep quickly, but even then, it usually was like 30, 40 minutes. But lately, one of the only gems, one of the best things I got, like out of the whole shenanigans with the long COVID and like chronic fatigue battle I've had the past 2 years, the only thing I got positive from it, and the thing that's still with me today, thankfully, is the fact that I can fall asleep really fast now. Most of the time, I lay down, I resolve myself like I'm gonna go to sleep, I get comfortable, within 5 minutes I'm out. It's the best feeling in the world to just be able to just conk right out. It's so good. Exhaustion from running around all day definitely had something to do with it, but more than anything else, I think it was because I suddenly felt happy. In the park where I might never again play with my family, I'd stumbled across a nice boy my age. He was a sweet kid who said thank you at the drop of a hat, so things would definitely go well. We'd be best friends in no time. For some reason, I felt absolutely certain of that. And it turned out my hunch was on the money. After those first few meetings, Yukun and I started playing together in the park pretty much every day. At first, we headed home quietly when the sun began to set, but after a while, we naturally started saying see you tomorrow. And when one of us couldn't make it for whatever reason, we'd let the other know in advance. Why'd the music cut out right there? Yeah, so they were like super close, like to the point where like the only reason why they aren't calling each other is because they probably don't have phones. Sachan, what are you doing over there?
何ってゴミを拾ってるんだよ。
Here's that part. This is the clue that helped him remember this place. Yeah, but why?
だって次にこの場所で遊んだ時綺麗だった方が嬉しいでしょ。
Wow, you're so thoughtful, Sachan. I mean, lots of people might think the same thing, but that doesn't mean they'd clean up the mess themselves. That's true. I have been trying to be more like that. It's hard, and oftentimes you just don't want to deal with it, but like, I sometimes I try to motivate myself to like, when I see trash, to just pick it up and take it somewhere. Part of me is almost thinking it'd be nice if I just, you know, when I go on walks or something, take some gloves with me and maybe like a little garbage bag or something, and just, cause like, it's not that hard to just pick up a little bit. It just sucks handling garbage, you know, you don't want to do that, but if I had some gloves, I really should start just doing it, because it's not a big deal, and yet, like she says, wouldn't it be nice to be able to come back and find it clean? And you did it without even thinking about it. You're kind of amazing. Did I say something weird again?
久しぶりに褒められたからちょっとびっくりして。
Aww. You haven't.
昔はね、私が頑張ったらお父さんとお母さんが褒めてくれてたんだけど、今は仕事が忙しいみたいだから。
Okay, in that case, I guess I'll have to take over that job for now. It doesn't seem hard to find stuff to praise about you. I think even I can handle this one. Oh, what a smooth line that is. Holy cow. That's the way you change someone's life, especially as a kid, because, you know, kids, like, sometimes, like, the littlest things will become, like, really important for you, which is what the story is really about. Like, sure, like, it might be, like, describing, like, a young love type situation, but they're too little for that. What really this is, though, is he's, like, a lifeline for her that she needs, and she's the lifeline for him. It's really a beautiful thing that they can just kind of be there for each other in ways that nobody else really could at the time, because the people who should have been weren't really doing that. That okay with you?
それはいいけど。
Okay, in that case, good job, Sachan. And he pats her head. With those words, Yukun brought his hand to the rest on top of my head. It was far smaller than Mom's hand, let alone Dad's, and yet, in that moment, his hand felt gentler and warmer than any other I'd known.
ありがとう、ゆうくん。
No wonder she was so responsive to the pat on the head. It'd be like unlocking that childhood memory. I've talked about that whole thing. I said it before, like the whole idea of like where you can have like a certain, like a smell or a taste that suddenly brings back a flood of memories. I wonder if that head pat like brought back a flood of memories for her. Yukun didn't just play with me. He gave me the attention I'd been craving. When I did well or tried hard, he'd compliment me right away. When I messed up or tried something risky, he'd give me a few gentle words of concern. Apparently, that also had something to do with his big sister's teachings, but whatever the case, Yukun's thoughtful warnings made me almost as happy as his praise. Lately, I'd started to wonder why I was trying so hard when no one even cared enough to look. But now, Yukun was watching me, and I had new reason to do my best.
それじゃあ見ててね。行くよ。
Yeah, be careful, okay?
どう私ちゃんとできてたかな。
Yeah, you spun all the way around perfectly.
ありがとう。
That's really amazing. Not that I'm much good at the horizontal bar or anything, but I've never done a forward flip even once. Oh, fetch me. That is really impressive. Okay, well, I guess it's like, maybe she's doing the thing where like you hold yourself up and you spin around on the bar. I have done that.
そんなにすごくはないと思うけど、今日初めて成功したから最初はゆうくんに見てほしかったんだ。
Oh, really? Thanks, Sachan.
ちょ
Oh my gosh. Huh?
これはいつも私と遊んでくれているお礼だよ。
That's really adorable. Again, they're so young, like, it's just more adorable than anything else. Yeah, thanks? When I tried hard at something, Yukun would always praise me. Sometimes, overflowing with happiness, I'd give him a kiss on the cheek in return, and more than once I drove myself so hard in pursuit of some new achievement that I ended up passing out on the playground. Oh, fetch me! This girl, she hasn't changed, has she? She'll literally run herself to the ground. That was how much Yukun's words meant to me. He had stepped into the gap left by my parents' absence, giving me the attention and affection they no longer would. Now, see, the problem is here that this is kind of dangerous. Like, it's great, and I feel like there's so much wholesomeness here, but like, she's grown so dependent on him, it's starting to sound and feel more like a codependency, where, like, too much of her personal happiness and self-worth is reliant on others. Like, she needs to start, like, in her future, like, the modern-day Sachi, we really need her to be able to have self-sufficient, I guess, praise or, like, value. If she's only valuable as long as other people are proud of her, that's gonna lead her down like dark and dangerous paths where at the drop of a hat, everything could crumble. And that's really, really dangerous. I can see where they're going with this. As I grew more and more conscious of what he meant to me, my daily life was quickly transformed. I spent less and less time inside the house. When I got home from school, I'd head straight off to the playground. More than anything else, I looked forward to the time I could spend playing with Yukun. At home, the constant grinding of the machines and the perpetual silence of our music box was still painful, but I found I could endure them now. Not to say that I didn't interact with my parents at all.
サチは最近よく公園で遊んでるみたいね。うん。ゆうくんってことお友達になれたから。そう。よかったわね。うん。お母さんもお仕事頑張ってね。
Now they're gonna not feel like they need to be there. When coincidence brought us together, we were able to hold slightly awkward but reasonably friendly conversations. Even so, I had stopped actively trying to regain their attention. In contrast to the steadily shrinking place my parents held in my heart, Yukun's presence grew larger and larger by the day. I wish it'd hurry up and be tomorrow so I could play with Yukun again. Yeah, it's too dangerous. Didn't take long for those feelings to blossom into a faint but unmistakable love. I'm surprised it took this long.
ゆうくんは好きな人とかいるの？
Aww. Like I said before, I guess my sister?
そういう好きじゃなくて、結婚したい人とか。
Oh my gosh. Sachi, come on. You're pretty young for this. Mary, I haven't even thought about that stuff yet. Sachan, are you thinking about it already?
私？
Well, you brought it up, so I thought you probably were interested.
そっか。そうだよね。
She's like, where'd that come from? Oh, right, me. Yeah, so, do you have someone you want to marry?
うん。
No kidding. Then, okay, then で
もね、私と結婚するには条件があるの。
Oh, okay. Qualified?
そう。靴飛ばしで、私より靴が飛ばせる人。
Oh no. Shoe kicking?
うん。こうやってブランコに座ったままで、どこまで靴を遠くに飛ばせるかっていう勝負なんだけど。
I get it.
だからね、ちょっとだけ。 ゆうくんもやってみない？
Oh, it's so wholesome and oh, it's so cute. Huh? Me?
ゆうくんが私より靴を飛ばせるかちょっとだけ試してみるの。
Sounds kind of fun, I guess. Sure, I'll play.
じゃあまずは私からね。
Confident, huh? Well, it seems like something you'd be good at, Sacha. Whoa, that went pretty far.
じゃあ次はゆうくんの番だよ。
Yeah, I'm not that confident, but... Yeah! Haha! Guess I can't beat you after all, Sachan. I purposely went a little easy on my kick, but I still ended up beating Yukun. Every once in a while, being naturally athletic can be a curse instead of a blessing. I spent that night curled up in my bed, bitterly regretting coming up with that stupid qualification in the first place. There must have been a better way to hide my embarrassment than that. Oh, kids. And so time slipped steadily by, my feelings unspoken. But as my next birthday grew near, my relationship with Yukun started to change in a different way. Wonder how that happens.
それでね、その時はお父さんがお母さんのことを怒らせちゃって。で、ゆうくん？
Oh, sorry, I was kind of spacing out.
もう、ゆうくんが私の家のこと聞きたいって言うから一生懸命お話ししたのに。
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yukun had always listened intently to my stories, and this was the first time I could remember his attention wandering in the middle of a conversation. But my unease was relieved quickly enough. He apologized and listened to the rest of my story. I figured he must have just had something on his mind that day. And yet... Sachan, do you think there's a god? Fetch me. Okay. You know, one who knows everything and can do anything? If there's a god that strong watching over us, even if things look really bad, it'll turn out okay in the end, right?
そうだね。私は神様を見たことがないから絶対にいるとは言えないけど、でも神頼みって言葉もあるくらいだし、神様はとっても強いんじゃないかな。
Yeah, that's gotta be right. God's gotta be really powerful.
多分。
That's what I thought too. Thanks, Sachan.
うん。
Sometimes he'd suddenly talk about God or other weird stuff. More often he'd sit rocking on a swing, staring off in the distance with a blank look on his face. It was the old familiar expression from the first time I met him, the expression he'd stopped making after we became friends. I had a vague idea that something must have happened at Yukun's home. But I was still just a kid, powerless to offer any real help. When Yukun asked me these questions, clearly searching for reassurance, all I could do was listen, nod, and try to hide my concern. At the same time, the blizzard of work that had buried my parents for so long was finally starting to slow down a bit. The machines weren't clattering quite as late into the night as they used to, and once or twice I went home early to find my parents making small talk with strangers in suits. Like most kids, I did get pretty curious about what the adults were talking about, but when I eavesdropped, all I got was a whole bunch of words I didn't really understand flying back and forth. I got the idea they were talking about the machines in the workshop, but the specifics went right over my head. They're probably buying replacements for the old machines while it's not so busy. But only a few days after I reached that conclusion, our housekeeper told me she'd be leaving the job. Apparently, Mom told her she'd be able to handle the chores by herself again. Okay, maybe they're selling the shop. It was nice that my parents were getting less busy and Mom would be looking after the house again, but at the time, my mind was so full of anxious thoughts for Yuka, and I couldn't manage to feel happy about anything else. Lately, he'd been showing up at the playground a lot less frequently. Yeah.
ねえねえゆうくん、次は何して遊ぶ？
Oh, it's playing the music of pain. Sorry, I've got something I have to do today. I have to head home now.
そっか。じゃあまた明日だね。
I don't think I can come tomorrow. But I'll play with you the day after that, okay?
わかった。じゃあまた明後日だね。
Yeah, sure. Bye, Sachan. Our meetings slowly grew fewer and further between. He got distant just like her parents did. The loneliness reminded me of the painful days when my parents had first begun ignoring me in favor of their job. Watching helplessly as Yukun trudged away, my mind churned with sadness and fear. At this rate, Yukun's gonna leave me too. I couldn't let that happen again. I couldn't let another person I love abandon me. This time I had to stop it somehow. The next time I saw Yukun, I decided to use my birthday as an excuse to coax him into spending more time with me.
あのね、明日は私の誕生日なんだ。
Oh, really?
うん。だから明日は私と一緒に遊んでくれる？
Actually, I probably won't be able to play with you for a while, Sachan. A bunch of stuff happened at home. I think it's gonna be hard for me to get outside from now on.
そんな、急にどうして？
Turns out, there isn't any such thing as God.
神様？
Yeah. Nobody's gonna protect me anymore. I probably won't be able to play in the park like this again.
そんな。
I'm sorry. I know I should have told you sooner, but Sachan, you always looked forward to playing with me. I didn't want to make you sad.
ゆうくん。
But vanishing suddenly without telling you would be even worse. Oh, he left on her birthday? Aw. Aw, this is awful. So today, I came to say goodbye.
じゃあ、ゆうくんとはもう会えないの？
I don't know for sure, but it's definitely possible.
そんな。
And I snuck out of the house today, so I have to get back before Dad notices.
ねえ、明日は私の誕生日なんだよ。
I'm sorry, I can't celebrate it with you, Sachan. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Tell him!
待って、ゆうくん！どうしてもう一緒に遊べないの？私そんなのやだよ。せっかく仲良くなれて、これからもっともっとゆうくんと遊べると思ったのに、それなのに、突然お別れしなきゃいけないなんて。私、明日も待ってるから、ゆうくんが来てくれるまで、絶対、
Oh,
いつも
man.
の場所で待ってるから。
The usual place, there it is. As Yukun slowly walked away for the very last time, I yelled at the top of my lungs, more loudly and more desperately than I ever had before in my entire life. But he never paused, he never turned back. Yukun's leaving me. Maybe I was right. Maybe everyone I love abandons me. Paralyzed by my miserable self-pity, I couldn't even chase after him. For a long time after that abrupt farewell, I could only stand stock still at the entrance of the park, wallowing in confusion and pain. He didn't even give her a reason either. And on the morning of my 10th birthday, rubbing my red, swollen eyes as I crawled out of bed, I immediately realized that something was different. For one thing, I couldn't hear the droning of the machines that had been running from the early morning hours for months now, and for another, the smell of fresh miso soup was wafting through the air from the kitchen. Could that be Mom cooking? What about work? Still half asleep and completely nonplussed, I wandered over to the living room where an unexpected sight was waiting for me.
おはよう、サチ。
お
Aww.
はよう。
Mom and Dad were sitting next to each other on the far side of the table, almost as if they'd been waiting for me to wake up. After greeting me, they waited with gentle smiles for my answer. It almost felt like I was reliving a memory from the days before they'd become so busy. The sheer surprise was such that it took me a moment to find a response.
おはよう。
ん？どうしたサチ？そんなに目を丸くして。
だって今日は機械の音がしないし、それにお父さんとお母さんがこの時間に家にいるなんて。
そうだな。自分たちのしてきたことを考えれば、サチが驚くのも無理はないか。
So they were aware. And they set this up too, like to happen on her birthday, I'm thinking.
今までが今まででしたからね。
The two of them smiled sadly at each other, then turned right back to me.
あのね、サチ。今日はサチの誕生日だから、お仕事はお休みにしたの。
Aww.
今まで寂しい思いをさせてしまった分の汚名を返上させてもらおうと思ってな。夜になってケーキを食べながら誕生日をお祝いするまで 今日はサチと一緒に遊ぼうと決めた。
Aww. It's actually really sweet that they're trying really hard, but she's had another upheaval that's gonna make it so that it might not land like they hope they will. The words coming out of their mouths were exactly what I'd been longing desperately to hear for so many months. It felt so much like a dream that I very nearly pinched myself. Mom and Dad would be at my side again like they used to be. Just like when every day was full of happiness, we could play together as a family once more. That was what I'd wanted all along, even while I was playing with Yuko, and I daydreamed countless times about this very moment. And now it was real. My parents were giving me the gentle, caring words I'd longed to hear. My heart should have been bursting with joy. And yet, what I felt instead was dark, intense anger, as though a hidden flame, long smoldering in some hidden cranny of my mind, had found the oxygen it needed to burst into a blazing wildfire. That's not great. Uh-oh. No matter how hard I tried, they completely ignored me. Why now, all of a sudden? Do they seriously think taking one day off work is going to make me forget how sad I've been all this time? Good luck with that. Oh, that's a dark voice in her head. Yukun took their place, but now even he's gone, so why? Why now? Why do they think they can just... Cold black bitterness spreading through my body, I lifted my head to give my parents their answer. Uh-oh.
いいよ。
Oh no. Come on, Sachi.
別に遊んでくれなくてもいい。
You're gonna regret this.
私は一人でも平気だし、お父さんとお母さんが大好きなお仕事を休んでもらってまで一緒にいてもらおうなんて思わない。だから、そんなに私の誕生日がお祝いしたいなら、二人だけでやればいいんだよ。
Oh man. God, can you imagine hearing that from your child? And especially because, like, it's also gonna be hard because they're gonna feel bitter because they probably worked really hard to get it set up so that they could make this day be completely open, and have her react like that. It'd be like, what on earth is going on? The instant those sulky words left my mouth, I bolted out of the living room.
Sachi!
待って、サチ！
They called out to me from behind, but I just kept running, out the door and away from our house. Not that I was heading anywhere in particular. Anywhere would be fine as long as Mom and Dad weren't there. I didn't want to see their faces, I didn't want to hear their voices. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, my hands clenched tightly into fists, biting my lower lip until the sickening taste of iron filled my mouth. I fled, the only thing in my mind was anger at my parents. Looking back on it now, it wasn't much more than an irrational outburst of pent-up emotion. But still, rather than feeling happy at their promise to celebrate my birthday together, I was outraged that my parents were wrapping up all the sadness and pain I'd felt for so long into those bland words about feeling lonely. And in the end, my blind, aimless flight carried me to that familiar playground. I hadn't consciously thought about making my way here. If anything, I was intentionally trying to stay away from the area close to my home. At some point, I definitely passed a hospital much further away than this place. Even so, some unconscious part of my mind had guided me to this destination. The impact of the previous day's events must have been just that strong. I couldn't simply accept that unbelievably abrupt goodbye. As Yukun left, I'd screamed that I'd be waiting for him today. If I forced one-sided promise on him, maybe he'd slip out of his house to see me. That selfish, childish hope was still alive inside me. Interesting. If I forced a one-sided promise on him. So promise is a really meaningful thing for her here. And the one-sided promise that that's kind of what she did with the promise of meeting at the usual place. She kind of forced that promise back on him. I don't know if she saw it that way, but it is essentially what she did.
今、何時だろう。
Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I looked up at the tall clock tower nearby. It was a little past 10 in the morning. Yukun always came to the playground around 1:30 on weekends, but I decided I might as well start waiting now. That way, I'd be here even if Yukun came early, and if Mom and Dad showed up, I could always just run away again.
そうだよね。
Trying to disguise the pain and anxiety growing inside me, I forced myself to believe in this spur-of-the-moment plan. Aww, this is sad. I walked over to the swing set where the two of us had always sat side by side and settled into my seat. The day before, I told Yukun I would wait for him in the park, but it wasn't like he promised to come play with me. He hadn't even responded to my words. There was no guarantee Yukun would come to this park. Still, I had an absolute faith that he'd show up eventually, and I was pretty confident I could wait patiently until then. But as this clock's hour's hand made its way past the 5 and my vigil approached the 8th hour, even the childish confidence began to waver.
やっぱりダメなのかな。ゆうくんとは昨日でお別れしなきゃいけなかったのかな。
The playground that had always felt too small for us suddenly seemed an unbelievably large and empty place. Yukun had told me clearly enough that he couldn't play with me anymore, that even getting outside would be difficult from now on. Could he even make it to the park if he wanted to? Having regained the ability to think rationally with the passage of time, my mind ruthlessly chipped away at my unfounded confidence. And finally I arrived at the realization that I had backed myself into a miserable corner. Once that timid thought passed through my mind, it was only a matter of time. The painful emotions I'd been covering up with my anger came burbling back to the surface. I was really mean to Mom and Dad again. They were gonna play with me and I ruined everything. This isn't any different than last year. Even if I go home tonight, my birthday's just gonna be Mom and Dad yelling at me. With each thought, the anxiety and regret swelled up uncontrollably inside me. Before I knew it, fat tears were running down my cheeks. Ironically, no. I think they're probably terrified that you're gone and they're desperately looking for her. But kids, it's so true. Like, this is such a real good glimpse into, like, how kids think, in a way. Because it's like, there's not a lot of, like, because of the lack of experience, everything's kind of all or nothing and way blown out of proportion than it needs to be. And it's confusing. It's hard. Like, you're trying to grasp at the world, but your worldview is so small and, like, your experience so limiting. It's just tough. It's tough to understand the world. I think even as an adult, it's tough to understand the world.
お父さん、お母さん。Sachi?
When I squeezed my eyes closed to shut out the world, I saw my parents in my mind's eye, their faces gentle and kind. No matter how lonely they made me, no matter how much I tried to hate them for it, in the end, I still loved them both very much.
Sachi!
And in that moment, I finally understood. I thought I could hear those same familiar voices, not in my memories, but somewhere nearby.
Sachi!
Sachi!
I raised my head with a jerk, indifferent now to the tears that continued to pour from my eyes. Outside the park, just on the other side of the road, I saw my mom and dad. Even from a distance, I could tell they were covered in sweat, that they'd been desperately searching for me. Mom and dad are still mom and dad after all, the people I love most in the whole world. I should have known that all along. Why couldn't I have accepted them from the start? No, there was no longer any point in even thinking about it. I was wrong. Now all I had to do was apologize. All I had to do was jump into their arms and yell I'm sorry for being so selfish. Oh no.
お父さん、お母
Are we about to see a return of Truck-kun?
さん。Sachi!
Once those two of them noticed my presence, their expressions instantly melted with relief. I dashed out of the park, overwhelmed with happiness, and I heard a sudden roar of displaced air like the sound of a fierce wind. In the next instant, the world before me was filled with a colossal jet black blur. Oh my gosh. I am so mad that that's actually what happens. I heard the sound of something colliding with something else and screeching to a halt nearby. I had to reflexively squeeze my eyes shut, and when I timidly opened them, I was greeted with the unimaginable. Oh my gosh. I don't want to click. Mom and Dad were stretched out flat on the road surface, almost as if sleeping face down. Oh my gosh. That I already hate it. I hate it so much, and I haven't even seen it fully yet. I hate it so much. Dad didn't even stir. A machine with a dead battery. Mom's twitching convulsively again and again. A broken toy. The blood pooling under their bodies crept slowly across the orange-tinted asphalt, dyeing the road with dusky red. Oh my gosh.
何これ。
Those agonizing groans, so totally unlike any other sound I'd ever heard my mother make, filled me with a terror too pure and primal to express in words. My ears had begun to ring as if drowned out by the unpleasant sound of a truck's engine idling nearby. With every moment that passed, my breaths came faster and faster. I couldn't fully grasp what had just happened before my eyes, but instinctively I understood that it was something so awful as to wipe everything that had come before into complete irrelevance. What do I do? What do I do? Right, I've got to call for help. At times like this, call 911 first, or I think it's 991, or I can't remember what it is in Japan. My mind was still capable of thinking about what I should do next, and yet my body was frozen on the spot as if physically rejecting the incomprehensible situation before me.
Sachi.
At the sound of my name, I turned my eyes back to the ground. My mother was dragging herself slowly across the road toward me, desperately trying to communicate something.
Okasa.
The sight instantly reduced me to a panicked frenzy. All I could do now was shriek her name. Lifting her trembling upper body ever so slightly off the ground, she slowly raised her face and then...
Sachi. どうして。
And then she spoke those words. And she interpreted it like, why did you do this? Why did you allow me? She's going to blame herself because of those words when she's probably saying like, why did you run? Or just like, why did we mess up? Like, why did we do this? In that instant, I thought I could hear something snap inside me. But as my body began to quiver uncontrollably, the world was covered in a black shroud. The split second after the buzzing drone inside my head finally went silent, I lost consciousness entirely. Apparently, a local passerby quickly reported the incident, and it wasn't long before the ambulances carried us away. Not that I remember any of that. When I opened my eyes for the next time, a full day had passed, and I was lying in a colorless hospital room. Oh, no wonder she's in, like, she went into, like, trauma mode when she woke up in the hospital.
Sachi! 目が覚めたのか?
I heard a chair scraping against the linoleum floor nearby, and a moment later, a familiar face appeared before me.
秋広。
ああ、おじさんだ。それより、体は大丈夫か? どこかが痛かったり、気持ち悪かったりしないか?
I gingerly moved my arms and legs several times, but couldn't find anything wrong with my body.
大丈夫。
そうか。よかった。
My uncle smiled broadly at my words, tears in the corners of his eyes. Still a little dopey from waking up, I felt a simple curiosity about the intense emotion so evident in his face.
ねえ、おじさん。何かあったの?
Could you imagine seeing like your niece or nephew or cousin or like a sibling, like a family member, like a little 10-year-old, and like having them wake up after that? And like, I'm guessing that they're both gone. And then they have to turn over to you and they ask what happened, and how do you answer that? Because you have to. When I put the question into words, my uncle averted his eyes, his expression filled with reluctance and pain.
お前の両親はな、サチ。事故にあったんだ。
事故。
And as I dully repeated my uncle's words, a memory that had slipped cleanly from my mind slowly reemerged. A small park died in the light of an evening sun. A smell of burning rubber, the sound of a truck idling. That poor truck driver, too. And finally... So what probably was happening, like it's an actual psychological thing, when you experience a very traumatic event, one of the defense mechanisms your brain can activate is essentially self-imposed amnesia. It's not meant to be a permanent thing. It can become one, but it's meant to be a block, and meant to be something that lets you, on a subconscious level and then a conscious level, slowly break down and accept something that's so traumatic and so terrifying and so harmful that like your brain just gets overwhelmed at the in the moment. You can run, you can scream, you can pass out, like so many ways that your brain kind of like like kind of short circuits itself and says like, nope, just boom, we are going full lizard brain mode for a little while, and then you try and process it because it is so traumatic. Mom and dad lying in pools of their own blood. The scene flashed before my eyes in perfect clarity. Reflexively, I tried to look away, but there was no escape, and in that next moment, my ears were filled with that awful droning buzz.
Sachi,
My field of vision grew slowly narrower, and the choking sense of paralysis spread through my body. It felt as though my body temperature had suddenly plunged. A violent wave of nausea and splitting headache attacked me all at once.
おいサチ、大丈夫か？
おじ
サチ！先生、サチが目を覚ましたんですが、急に苦しみ出して。
And the world grew dim before my eyes. I could vaguely make out my uncle shouting desperately for someone's attention. Wait, now I can't see or hear anything? Oh, guess I'm fainting again. That instant, the thought ran through my head. I plunged into nothingness. She's at least she was able to think her way through that. Like the one time I passed out, I didn't even I was just like, it was the weirdest thing. What had happened is I'd like gotten up really fast because I'd heard like a noise and I was like responding to it. So I went from asleep to like on my feet and moving, and I went to the hallway and I stopped, realized that it wasn't a crisis, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I turned, and then the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, and my thoughts were a little fuzzy. And it took me like 5-10 minutes to suddenly be like, wait, why am I on the floor? Like, everything seemed perfectly normal and reasonable, but like, the voices I was hearing didn't make any sense. Like, it was like I could hear people talking, and like, I just didn't like notice that it didn't make any sense, but the words weren't communicating. Like, it's just like I was hearing conversation, and I was just like, oh, that's nice. That sounds nice. And then it took me a few minutes, and I was like, oh, that's words. They're talking, and they're asking me questions. I was like they're asking me, like, are you okay? Do you feel all right? And I was just like, yeah, I feel fine. And then after a little bit, I was like, wait, when did I get on the floor? It's kind of terrifying that your brain can just shut off. It would be a full 3 days before I woke up again. When the nurse noticed my eyes were open, she immediately called the doctor in charge, who conducted a quick examination on the spot. After determining that I wasn't so severely impaired as to cause difficulties in an ordinary conversation, the doctor began to explain many things to me. Uncle Akihiro, who came running over to the hospital, soon joined in as well. The day Mom and Dad had been in a traffic accident right before my eyes. Just as I ran out toward them, a truck with a drunk driver behind the wheel had barreled through the intersection, ignoring a red light. Fetch me. It is so depressing how that happens. Like, it's so sad how many times that's a genuine, like, her parents weren't even like crossing dangerously. They weren't even like breaking any rules. Like, they were just trying to see their kid. And this idiot, driving while drunk, just destroyed them. For no reason. No reason. It's so sad. That's one of the things like I hate about alcohol. I've never liked it. I don't drink. I just don't. I hate the idea of the fact that like you can willfully like kind of make yourself stupid. I know people find it fun, and if you drink, fine, whatever, do you. But I've always just hated that concept. I'm terrified. I think I would never want to willingly do that to myself. And the saddest thing is that like people like this destroy lives. Like, okay, so there's in our local community, a few years ago, we had an incident where we know this family, kind of part of our like social circles in our neighborhood. They had like some kids. Like, I think I had like 5 kids, like ages like 17 to like 12 or 10 or something. And a few of their older kids were out playing with friends and doing their thing. And they crossed a road, and like they had the right of way, like the lights were like red and they were like crossing where they should, right? Like they were goofy kids. I don't think they were wearing like reflective tape or anything. They were just, being pedestrians later at night, like, and a drunk driver barreled straight through red light and hit 3 kids, like 2 of them from this family and one of their friends, and killed all 3 of them. Like, we're talking teenagers, like 14, 15, and their friend who was also 15, just gone in a heartbeat. Boom. Out of 5 kids, 2, one night, just gone. And that was just horrifying to be a part of, like even remotely. Just that whole concept, that whole reality of being like, oh yeah, you know these people who you spent time with, you know their family, you know their names, you know some of the things they like to do. Just kids just growing up, trying to, you know, preparing for a future, just bye, nothing anymore. And it's like, it's so awful and so infuriating that the chances are that if that person hadn't been drinking, that wouldn't have happened. That's what's so senseless about it, right? That's what bothers me about it. If I could, I really wish prohibition had been a thing. I really wish that we had a really good reason to just not let that be a vice anymore. I feel like we have better, safer vices. But even then, like, there's even like another one that's like safer is like pot, marijuana. I have no problem with that, people choosing that. Now it's becoming legalized. It's also like, that's cool, that's great. It really shouldn't be criminalized, especially as severely as it was. But I agree, again, the same thing is the case where, like, if it's impairing your ability to make judgments, you should not be driving a vehicle. I think it's safer than alcohol, but I still think it's scary. Like, I've been in a car with somebody who was, you know, like, on their supply, and I don't feel like they were making great decisions while driving behind the wheel of a 2-ton vehicle. Like, I don't know if, like, that's much better. I think anything that impairs your judgment is kind of scary. So, sorry for the long rant. Nothing, like, keep in mind, this is personal. Like, legislation, whatever. Personal thing you do, great. More power to you. I just don't like it. Because I don't like that concept. I don't like the concept that I could suddenly find myself in a situation where I had no idea where I am or what's going on or why something happened, but I could be at fault, or I could, like, have had something, a choice that was made that could have major, like, impact that I just wasn't 100% available for, right? Sure, partially I was around for it, but, like, I still at the same time, like, that just, like, I hate that idea. Hit head on by a massive vehicle which had been traveling at 60 kilometers an hour or more, my dad died instantly from massive blunt force trauma. Mom had miraculously survived, but at the moment she was still unconscious, fighting for her life in critical condition. Well, that's something. When I learned all this, I didn't cry or grieve. I didn't explode with anger against the man who'd caused the accident. The words the doctor used were really hard to understand, so a lot of the conversation went over my head. That probably had something to do with it. But more than anything else, nothing about this situation felt remotely real to me.
やっぱりちゃんと動く。
That night, finally alone in my darkened hospital room, I flexed my legs and arms thoughtfully. No matter how many times I tested it, my body didn't feel injured. I could move just as freely and easily as before. And maybe Dad was dead, maybe Mom was lying unconscious somewhere in the hospital, but I hadn't seen either of them yet. So maybe everyone was telling me about this accident was just lying. Maybe if I were to get out of bed and head straight home, my parents would be waiting for me there. My thoughts persistently returned to those comforting, paper-thin theories.
でもお医者さんが嘘を言うはずないし。
And more importantly, the depths of my mind, a clear memory remained. So anytime she tries to confront those thoughts, like, her brain starts auto-shutting down. Ugh. The instant my thoughts brushed against that fragment of the past, I could hear my heart throb violently in my chest. This time, the shrill buzzing that had accompanied the similar incident 3 days earlier was conspicuously absent. In exchange, the most severe headache of my life fell upon me with all the suddenness and force of an avalanche. The sharp burst of pain, as if my body was warning me not to touch an open wound, robbed me of my will to think. Then I'll just stop trying. I'm sick of fainting. She's sick of thinking. It's the memory. This is what it is. Remember, I said forever. I was just like, she doesn't trust herself for some reason. She doesn't trust her own thoughts. She doesn't trust her own brain because she brushes too close to these memories. She goes into shutdown panic mode. And so for now, ever since then, she just became this kind of vessel of everyone else's will, seeking the praise that she always had craved as a child, but to such an extent, it became her life mission and identity. As soon as I emptied my mind, the headaches vanished with astonishing speed. My breathing came easier, and I could feel my heartbeat gradually return to its normal rhythm. There's something wrong with my body after all. Nothing like this ever happened to me before that day.
じゃあ、私の頭に残ってるあの光景は。
As my mind began to reach a conclusion I didn't want to accept, I involuntarily recalled the agony I'd just endured. If I remember what happened, the pain will come back. An ensuing wave of terror wiped all else from my mind. Pulling the blankets over my head in search of refuge, I waited for the morning to come. Yeah, I can see why they might have called this post-traumatic stress, but I feel like it's a super version of it. Did that accident they keep talking about really happen? Several days later, the disbelief still lingering in my mind, I was taken to visit my mom in the intensive care unit for the first time. After carefully disinfecting my hands with alcohol, the nurses dressed me up in a hospital gown just like theirs and finally ushered me into the room. And just as they told me, my mother was inside. But the person lying on the bed in front of me wasn't the mom I knew. There was a huge oxygen mask covering her mouth, bandages were wrapped around her head, numerous tubes were sticking out of her body, connecting her to all sorts of machines. The sight reminded me of nothing so much as the Frankenstein's monster I'd seen in movies. But this was reality. That day, the accident happened exactly as they told me, and now my mom was sleeping in a nest of machines. In an instant, I finally perceived that undeniable fact as reality. I was struck with a powerful wave of nausea. The hospital room grew dark before me, and in that darkness, a fuzzy image flickered before my eyes, disappearing for the briefest of moments only to re-emerge like some pale and distinct horror, bobbing up and down just beneath the surface of a muddy lake. Unable to endure the sickness swelling up from the core of my body, I vomited up the contents of my stomach on the spot and was hastily carried out of the room by the nurse who'd accompanied me. I mean, that's kind of the worst thing you could have in a room, a clean room, was that, so I get it. After that, I tried to return to the ICU numerous times, but the outcome was always the same. The moment I saw my mother in her hospital bed, I experienced severe nausea and was quickly removed from the room. My doctor took these events very seriously and eventually forbade me from visiting Mom for the time being. That night, I laid awake in bed until well after the lights had been turned out and unable to fall asleep. I hadn't suffered any real injury, so sitting around all day often left me with too much physical energy. Sometimes I would go an entire day without feeling hungry or lie awake in bed for hours. As today, these things that I'd heard during the daytime were also weighing heavily on my mind. I lay in my bed staring up at the now familiar tiles of the ceiling and thought about my parents.
もうこの世界にお父さんはいない。それにお母さんだって。
She might never open her eyes again. Sometimes I'd overhear my uncle talking about it with the nurse in low tones. Apparently, Mom was sick with something called a persistent vegetative state. From what I could figure out, that meant the possibility she'd wake up again was really, really low. It means that basically all they can detect so far is like brain activity from the stem. So the stuff that keeps your basic functions going, the core of your brain. But prefrontal cortex, a lot of the thinking, processing, most of that's probably just blank or shut down or minimal, which means that there's no brain activity. So she's alive, her body's keeping her alive, her cells are moving, the blood is pumping, but that's about it. Mom's gonna be asleep forever and ever. In other words, I'd never be able to talk to her again. A bitter frustration welled up inside me at the thought.
やだ。そんなの嫌だよ。
And she's a kid, she's gonna blame herself. But no matter how I tried to deny the reality, nothing would change. Even if my parents' job were no longer keeping us apart, the blissful days I'd wished for would never return. The more I understood the situation, the heavier my despair grew. Tears spilled relentlessly from my eyes. My mind was filled with a miserable new question. Why? Why had it turned out like this?
あの日は私の誕生日だったのに。 本当ならゆうくんと一日中遊んで去年よりもずっと。
But in reality, I hadn't been able to see him. And because of that sudden accident, Dad was dead, Mom was sleeping forever. Everything I loved had been taken from me in one horrible instant.
どうしてこんなことになったの。私
It really isn't. That's the definition of not fair.
なの嫌
This is like one of the purest forms of not fair that exists in like anything.
どうして
Yeah, that question. When I squeezed my eyes shut in an attempt to escape the cruel reality of my situation, I thought I heard someone's voice in my mind.
ねえ、サチ。どうしてあの時、家を飛び出してしまったの？どうしていい子にしていてくれなかったの？
Oh no.
お母さんもお父さんもトラックにはねられて、とてもとても痛かったのよ。
Oh my gosh. 'Here it comes.
やめてよ。
Since the day I accepted that accident had really happened, these feelings had been lurking unacknowledged in the depths of my mind. That accident happened because of me. If I had listened to my parents and stayed in the house, they wouldn't have been on the street when the truck ran the red light. It's so unfair. She can't throw herself like that. Like, she can't, like, it wasn't her fault, but I absolutely believe she would believe that. And I think I would too, if I were in her shoes. Heck, if it happened to me today, same scenario, same people, essentially, my parents, like, I'd been mad and run away from them, and they were looking for me, and they found me, and they ran into the street and got hit by a drunk driver. I would ultimately blame myself, even though, like, there's a logic that explains, like, no, the drunk driver was the one who shouldn't have been driving drunk, who was the fault. But that's not how you'd feel. You never would. Even you, Kun. I selfishly tried to manipulate him into coming to the park. Maybe that's why he didn't show up. Maybe he just finally got sick of me. In other words.
全部私のせいだ。
As I spoke those words, the ringing in my ears returned for the first time in a while, harsher and shriller than ever before.
何これ。
A dull paralysis spread through my body, very similar to what I used to experience before fainting from overexertion on the playground. But the venomous chill crawling up my spine clearly signified that this was something else entirely. Something shadowy and unfamiliar and malevolent was attacking my body. My heart thumped violently in my chest, and in that moment the world froze around me. The air wasn't cold, it was solid ice, so frigid as to cause physical pain. My clenched teeth began to chatter loudly. I think it's a super panic attack, essentially. It's a... oh, what's it called? There's a word for it. It's a word for when it's beyond panic attack. It's where your body is physically manifesting like symptoms it doesn't actually it's not actually experiencing. So she says she feels cold and her jaw is chattering. Her body is having a neurological reaction to a mental stimuli and is manifesting in a physical form. So her body is probably behaving as if she's experiencing hypothermia, which means that her temperature is probably spiking because her body's trying to compensate for a cold that's not real. And so she's probably overheating and going into a fever, and that's only going to make this worse. My mouth opened wide, I desperately gulped out oxygen, a little gasps every breath as a painful struggle. It was wrong, and something even worse is coming next. The voice rang out in my mind again as I knew it would.
Sachi.
And so the nightmares began. Oh no. I gotta still call it a certain place.
どう？さっちゃん、今日は食べられる？
Okay, I know you mentioned that we could maybe go through all of it today. Let's not. That was a lot. I kind of want to end it here. I'm tired of it. I need a break. And I think you'll all agree that's pretty good. We're going to watch probably her slow adaptation to reality. The way she tries to process a world where she can exist. In a world where she doesn't trust herself or her ability to make decisions because she's terrified that it'll take away the things she's grown to care about. And so her whole life became like an eternal search for pleasing, finding praise and keeping other people happy. Because as long as other people are happy and healthy and safe, then her life isn't so terrible that it shouldn't exist. And that's like the depressing factor, is that she probably thinks that despite all the good things that she can do and all the things she's capable of, that it barely justifies her own existence. And that's so sad. That's so sad. So, yeah. Oh boy. Well, thank you so much for visiting this today. Hope you enjoyed your ride through trauma with me. That was really, really, really sad. There's a lot here. There's a lot to digest, but it was really, really good. Like it's really good to understand and really well written, well crafted and paced. I'm really interested to see where this is going to go and how it translates to modern day Sachi. And what on earth Yuji's going to even be able to do about this? Like, this feels well beyond his ability. Like, at least with Michiru, I kind of understood what he was able to accomplish with her, what he was able to kind of see the value, and also to be able to kind of pull out the different aspects of the two personalities that he was working with there. Like, that makes sense to me. This is a whole nother thing. This is just pure trauma. This isn't like, I don't know. This isn't a misrepresentation of an identity or a misunderstanding of the way reality works. That's kind of what depression can do. That's what a lot of these issues can have. They warp the way you see things. And that's kind of what's happening with Sachi. But at her core, there are like hard facts that just are undeniable. She probably can't change how she feels about those facts. The best route we could probably hope for is that she can understand that it's okay to move on. And it's okay to set her own path, and that's what her parents would have wanted, and that it's okay that there were things that happened that day that she regrets. That's the biggest thing. Is like, I think she needs to understand that, like, just because she feels like there's faults, that there isn't really fault. That it was the drunk driver who was at fault, and that, you know, it's kind of a butterfly effect situation, and it sucks, but it's kind of what happened. So all right. Anyway, let's end it here. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for being part of the channel, especially to patrons and members. Your support, your devotion, your care makes the world to me. It helps motivate me, and I need that motivation. Oh my gosh, the Baldur's Gate videos are insane. Like, a little bit of insight, if you haven't watched Tuesday's episode, I worked really, really, really hard on it. As far as footage that I captured to prepare for that, it was over 8 hours. And I cut it down to 1 hour and 40 minutes. It still felt kind of long to me, but it really was the best I could manage. I'm hoping that I can capture like less footage, but cover more content next time, so it's not as much of a monster, but I doubt it. That game's long, and while it's really fun, I don't think it'd make an interesting video to do every single thing. But the challenge of learning how to do the video edits like this and to make a different type of series for a game like that, I found really challenging and really fun. So I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Also, though, I just appreciate the fact that your support, whether you're a member or a patron or just a watcher, like as someone who watches, leaves a comment, who leaves a like, or you're even just lurking, as they say on Twitch, it means the world to me. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope you keep coming back for more. Hopefully I keep making content that keeps you coming back for more, and that we can share these stories together. But until next video, watch me or see me next. I'll see you there.